So there's a global pandemic. You're once again wondering, will we ever get out of this thing? Will new people involved in this thing maybe shine a light at the end of the tunnel? We're not going to talk about that, but we are going to tell you where we are, how we feel, what's going on, and hopefully give you some guidance as we all hold hands and wander the yellow brick road that is the end of a COVID-19, maybe one day, wherever we go. And that wonderful corking sound you just heard during the intro was none other than our guest today. By the way, I'm Stephen Jacobs right here, and Coleman Ranahan has joined us on the show tonight. Coleman, what did you just uncork, and can I have some?
Yes, I want some.
Everyone is absolutely welcome to have it because I will drink it all. That is a bottle of Woodford Reserve that was gifted to me for yesterday's stream. So I drank about a good quarter of it.
That's good. So you're primed and ready to roll for tonight's conversation.
Oh yes, I've got a nice tiny little glass here.
A wee dram is what we call it on this show. A wee dram. So in other words, the end of last night's stream was probably really fun to watch.
Oh, I kind of just I was ready to go to bed like an hour before the stream ended, and I was getting loopy. I was like, it's just between that and the drinking, I'm like, I'm just, you know what, it's time. I could have stayed up till midnight, and then I was like, nope, it's like 8 o'clock. I'm going to bed. And then I didn't go to bed, of course.
No, of course not. Of course not. If you're listening to this late, we record the show on Wednesdays. Today's November 4th. So if any of us are off base, confused, preoccupied, otherwise not on the top of our game, it's because yesterday was November 3rd. Just laying that out there. So we're in it, man. And we're all doing our best. But Coleman, I just want to start off by thanking you for joining us on the show, for being our guest tonight on Staring at Goats. But the audience, the world as we know it, might not know of Coleman Ranahan, and they should. So can you tell the people who you are, what you do, those kinds of things?
Sure, I'm an idiot. That's one. No, actually, so I am a filmmaker and YouTube expert, if you will. I'm actually right now as a day job. I've worked film on and off for the last 10 years. I've done everything from film work, producing, writing, and also anything under the sun, any hat you can think of in terms of a film production I've worked on. But right now, my current day job is a YouTube channel manager. I work with a lot of high-profile clients, and I'm not trying to brag. I actually legitimately work with high-profile clients. Anything in a movie studio, a TV studio, sports, live sports, which is another reason my schedule is all over the place. So I work on that. I basically, I do all the photoshopping, I do all the copywriting. I do all the little nifty things you see on a YouTube video, the social links, whatever, any of that stuff you can think of that's on a YouTube video is stuff that I do. So,
Nice.
Yeah, if you let's say happen to be looking at the NFL on a Thursday, all their YouTube videos are done by people like me. So, yeah, that's kind of some of the work that I do. And we get to have a lot of fun with that. It's kind of in the same realm as filmmaking, but it's a different alley, if you will, the digital media side of things. So I get to do a little marketing. I get to do a little writing, copywriting, all that kind of thing. And I also get to do a little bit of art with photoshopping and stuff. So our job is never the same. I mean, it technically is the same. It's doing videos over and over again, but that's basically what I get to do.
So you are a creator, man. That is your overall title.
I'm a multi-tool that keeps running into the walls repeatedly, basically. Yeah.
Did you have an opportunity to work remotely before, or was this? I mean, because I'm assuming you're pretty much remote now.
Yeah, I have the very fortunate ability to be able to work from home.
Oh, sure.
So thank God. Yeah, everything is able as long as I have an internet connection. My job is pretty easy.
Yeah.
I just, the only time I have to worry about anything is if we have like files that are like 30 gigs, and you're like, oh, that's going to take a little bit on my computer. Uh, so I've got good internet, but it's still, files take time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about the gist of it.
Okay. Well, very cool. So when you did you have a location that you actually went into for your job, or was it primarily I'm working from home, or did you have an office space that you did pre-COVID?
Yeah, we did have an office space pre-COVID. We actually had a fairly large one. It's there's like a lot of weird silver linings to everything that happened. Transitioning from in February, we went work from home in February.
Oh, okay.
Right,
So you guys
right.
were like right at the very beginning.
Yep.
Okay.
We were technically losing our office space anyway. So the weird silver lining of this whole thing is that now we don't have to spend X amount of dollars a month now on office space. So
Yeah.
we're like, some of the other silver linings of this whole thing is that the fact that we, of course, people aren't spending as much money in the fiscal year because of all this stuff that's going on. People are, they're having their budgets slashed. So some of the things that happens, like the one gift of working from home now is that we're saving money, and not having to burn that in our wallets, because we have an office space that's just sitting there not unprotected. That's not a thing. That's just like sitting there vacant.
Right.
So we've managed to save that and keep people employed because of that. Which, again, thank you for that silver lining.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that was every job I've had previous to that was not something I could do work from home. It was all like in person, on location, whether it was film work, whether it was working in a drugstore. That was basically all, like everything was like physical manual labor in some way that
Right.
like could not be duplicated working from home unless I happened to be like an office assistant or something. But even then, like you still have to be in kind of view of everybody.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I'm very lucky to have a job that enables me to work from home.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of what you do really is built for kind of remote work anyway, because a lot of times you can't be on necessarily scene for some of these YouTube channels and some of these other major corporations. You're going to be sent videos.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
And
it sounds like it's really built for it.
yeah, it really is. And like if I was maybe perhaps on the client facing side of things, where like, like an account manager or like a project manager where like they have to talk to clients or they have to go and meet clients, like maybe that might be a different story, although all of that is still work from home now.
Yeah.
Like that might have been a different story, but luckily what I'm doing, I'm more of like the day-to-day operations kind of thing. So I basically just get to sit at my computer and just type.
Do you think that your company or is going to go back to an office space after this, or are you guys fully invested in everybody just being at home now?
My company's already stated that they've wanted to go back to an office at some point.
Okay.
When that is to be, up in the air still.
Yeah.
Because of everything that, like, just the uncertainty of everything. But like they have already like discussed of like, yeah, there's probably going to be some flexibility now.
Yeah.
Like if like, unless it's like a major meeting or something, you'll probably be able to like be granted the luxury of working from home. And then we'll like, we might have like certain days of the week where we just need people to come in, because that way we can have like meetings or like one-on-ones, or like, if we have to discuss something that we probably don't want being talked over Zoom, then like, then we'll probably end up having that. But they were like, well, maybe we'll think about it in July of next year. But like that, even then, that has a giant question mark on it, because we still don't know anything that's going on. So like it is, everything has just got like a big old giant like Riddler question mark on it. So,
Awesome.
but
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, but that's it.
So you live out in a state that the governor has been both praised and criticized pretty heavily for his response to COVID-19 and what he's trying to mandate. Can you give the listeners a little sense of what's going on out in California and why the precautions that were taken by Governor Newsom actually what led to those things?
Sure. I mean, I don't know 100% of all these things, but like,
Sure, yeah, just kind of a broad 10,000 foot view, so that you don't have to get into the nitty gritty.
we're in a large state. We're like one of the biggest economies in the if not the biggest economy in the United States. And we're, that's a lot of GDP. That's a lot of that's a lot of business that like is going on. And so, but like we tried to do the right thing at first by closing everything down, and then people were getting really mad because people don't like to be cooped up. People don't like to be doing what we're doing right now. But we get it because there's a pandemic going on. Oh, don't vibrate. I just hit my arm. But like, yeah, people don't like to be cooped up, and they're getting restless, and they're like, so like, we had a hard lockdown because we're on the West Coast. We are an international travel hub.
Mhm.
And so we've got, Los Angeles. I'm not even like 4 miles from LAX. So like we've got everything coming in under the sun here. So like, there was lockdowns here, lockdowns over there. Like there was just like lockdowns galore, right? And then like once we started like seeing that like things were starting to let up a little bit, people were getting antsy, and people wanted like that's when like Newsom started getting like the fire lit under him, because people were like, all right, let us out now, like things are good, like everything's okay. And of course, Newsom has like, it's a double-edged sword that he's holding without a handle. Like there's
Yep.
no good way in or out. Like he either has to let people out, or they start, I don't know, essentially like throwing things all over the place. Like, like I don't want to say riots, but like people like are gonna like start getting like incredibly angry and doing things. And like he had an unconscionable like decision to make of like, do we let things go again? And then he did, and then all of a sudden cases started ticking up again. And we're like, well, we saw that coming, and then we started locking things down again. And then like it's been a roller coaster. It's been up and down. Like when we try to like get things under control, things are good for a little bit, and then once we like let go, and then like let people kind of quote unquote go back to normal, things just get bad again. And like because of the large size of our state and like everything that's going on, like California has like a very different like patches of areas that are all different politically and whatever else. Like a lot of those things like change a lot. So like we're trying to like piecemeal a lot of this together, but like Newsom is like basically like having to like be firm as much as he can without like letting like the only thing I can think of is like putting a what the hell are those the white mints in a Diet Coke
Mentos.
bottle.
Mentos and Diet Coke. That's what you're talking about.
It's basically like, basically he's like he like put like it's like putting like small shreds of Mentos in a Diet Coke bottle, right? And it's whether or not you think the lid's gonna pop off is like the constant back and forth. He's like twisting like the lid basically to see whether or not it's gonna like just shoot up in the air or like just spread all over your pants or something.
Yeah.
So
So
he's balancing the emotional weight of everyone along with the health knowledge that he has on how things are going to go. You're right. It's a tightrope walk. You're like, how much and how long does a person allow themselves to be contained before they start to blow? And that's what governors have to do. They have to go, okay, how long can I keep them inside with them still thinking, hey, this is kind of nice. We're getting some extra time with each other and family and taking walks and stuff. I totally, there's a whole different thing.
Yeah, and I totally understand all of that. It's just it's an like no matter what, it's an impossible choice. Because like it's just you're stuck one way or the other. You'll be blamed if you don't try and do stuff, and then you'll be criticized if you didn't do enough.
Yeah. Well, and California was one of the places that we've reported on several times in our 31 episodes about people opening up businesses, the back doors of businesses, and hair salons and tattoo parlors, and prematurely and violating orders and doing all kinds of shenanigans in that state. And you're right. I think what's interesting about California is that the pockets of conservative versus liberal versus moderate versus, I mean, it's just everywhere is a little bit different, and you could ride 2 minutes away from where you're currently at, you'll be in a different pocket.
Yeah, especially in Los Angeles too. Like if you just want to talk about like the city like wide things, like each city, each part of the city is like got its own thing going on, because even though LA County is its own, like, it is the city of Los Angeles. Every city in Los Angeles is its own thing.
Yeah.
So like the Santa Monica government is going to be a different thing than the like Glendale government. So like not everything is the same, and they are going to have different restrictions. Like Beverly Hills, of course, it's Beverly Hills. There's tons of rich people. They had like their own incredibly bonkers restrictions that like even I was like, oh geez, like come on, man, like that's a little bit much. But like yeah, like so like they're their own like functioning like entities, so you have to like be able to balance all of those things, and sort of for the most part I think LA's been at least been able to get it right. In some regards. There's been things here and there where of course you see like stories where like, oh no, that's not good. So but I think we are trying our best right now.
How did you do with it? I mean, you personally with some of the restrictions. I know that you're right in the middle of LA, right there near
Yep.
the airport. So you had quite a few restrictions placed on you. How personally did you do with those restrictions?
I did fine. So to like give a little bit of context to why I say fine, when I was going to college, I lived by myself. And I basically lived in the middle of everything, or like I should say, I went to school in downtown Chicago. I lived halfway between where I used to live, and then like halfway between my home near Wisconsin, and then halfway between Chicago. So and my friends went to school at ISU, so like they were all the way down south. So I was stuck in the middle of everywhere and everything with like no access to a lot of things.
Yeah.
No access to friends, no access to like, so basically I was going to school, and then if I wanted to go visit my friends, I had to go travel 2.5 hours down south. Or if I wanted to go back home, I'd have to drive an hour back home. So like that, when I say fine, basically college for 2.5 years prepared me for what we're already doing.
Right.
And so like I don't have an office to go into anymore. So like there's nothing to do except sit in my apartment, although I'm trying to get moderate exercise. So I'm doing like a thing where like I go out every other day. But like when things were first happening, I was going nowhere. I was
zero.
Yeah, I was staying in my apartment, and I have a very small apartment, so like the cabin fever started setting in after about a month. But then like I was like, oh no, like I started like getting that old college feeling again of like, oh no, I've done this already.
Okay.
Like so I was like, oh yeah, okay, so I just have to like kind of think of it like this way. And I'm like, oh okay, well then like boom, okay, we're done. Like I already know what's going on. I know like kind of when my neighbors are walking out the door. I kind of know when deliveries come. I know like everything, like so I can avoid people if I need to. Like my mind's a mess. It's a mental mess. But like I basically like planned everything in my head of like, I know when to do this. I know when to go do this. I know when like things like when the bus is coming. I know like I basically like figured out everything in my head like it's within the first month.
Gotcha.
And so basically like I already prepared myself for like however long this was going to happen. And when like people are like saying like this is a once in a lifetime pandemic, I'm like, okay, I totally understand. We're gonna be in this for the long haul. Like get used to it, man. Like and so very quickly I did. And I of course times go down, times go up, but like I was like, all right, I know what the long-term goal of this is, and that's one, to protect the health of myself, and two, to protect the health of the other people, like the other Americans. And I'm like, okay, I get it. And this is like, so basically like the first month prepared me for everything. Like the restrictions in my mind were like, I get it. It sucks, but I get it.
Yeah.
So like everything, like when restaurants started closing down, I didn't order anything from restaurants. Like I didn't go to the gym. Like they were trying to like they've on and off tried to like open the gyms, and like I was like, I'm not going to the gym. I know people are sweaty, people are coughing, people are doing whatever. They're like wiping themselves over everything. Like they don't wipe down the machines. I'm not doing anything. Like, so like one was like to protect the health of myself. And like two, I had been like sick multiple times months prior because I'd like just been stressed out because I had to move out of my old apartment just months prior. So I was like, I am not, my ass is not moving anywhere that could potentially get me sick.
That's right.
And so I was like, all right, restrictions. I'm not like embracing them. I'm not like, yay, restrictions, and like hugging myself. But like I was like, yeah, okay, all right, I get it.
Yeah.
Boom.
So
Like,
how
and-
comfortable are you with going out? I mean, are you, when you go out, are you, protected to the nines? Or are you like kind of a porn star going into a brothel? You're just, whatever. I'm just going to go do whatever. I'm unprotected encroachment of grocery stores.
I am. I won't say I'm like the most like. I'm not like a person who's got like. I've got like 2 masks and like a face shield over everything. Because for the most part, I don't go out. I've got a couple of masks. I've got like 2 cloth knit masks or whatever that like my aunt made. And then I've also got like one I bought off Etsy. I've got like multiple masks. So I'm okay in the mask department. Like that's not a problem. I just put the mask on. I go out. If I'm gonna do anything, if I'm like if I happen to like, if I know I'm like a little allergic that morning, I like pop a cough drop just so I'm not coughing. And so like I'll go out, but it's not to like, I'm not going to go out and do anything extensive. I'm either going out for exercise, which is to just walk around 3 miles on like roads that like I know people aren't going to be on usually.
Yeah.
Or I'm just going to the store very quickly to pick up something. I get most of my groceries done by delivery. So like I'm not worried about like standing in line holding a bunch of groceries all the time. I only have to go out if I absolutely need to. So like all of that stuff is like, and it also made me realize I should have been getting all my groceries delivered before.
Right?
But like now I'm like, okay, well now I'm just doing this from now on because I don't have a car. That's the other thing. I don't have a car, so I don't go like I can't like lug stuff. Like it would make things a lot easier if I had a car to just be able to go back and forth. That's fine. I probably wouldn't. I'd be maybe doing 50-50 delivery going in person. But like the fact that I don't have a car, I'm like I'm taking the hard factor out of this.
Yes.
And
Which
I realized
is lugging the groceries back, right?
Yeah,
That's
right.
the pain in the ass.
And my closest grocery store is a mile away, and I've got arthritis, so I'm like, I don't want to like be messing with like I don't want to be damaging my wrists and all that kind of thing. So like I just get the groceries delivered now, and that takes out a lot of factors. Doesn't take out all of the factors because your delivery person could still maybe potentially be sick. I don't know. Like that it doesn't like guarantee you anything necessarily, but it does cut out a majority of like the huge factors that you could like be standing in versus like just getting everything like tossed in front of your door basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's basically like a lot of that like going out like yeah like I it's just like the one mask. It's like as long as like I've got headphones on, I've got the mask, I've got maybe my glasses on, but like I'm not going absolutely crazy. I mean, if I had to get on a flight, I would consider it because you're stuck in a circulated air tube for me I would probably end up being 5 hours, so I would definitely go to the nines on that one.
Yeah.
But like if I'm not going anywhere, if I'm just like going out, if I'm going to the 7-Eleven or something real quick, it's a mask. But like I 100% anytime I'm going out, I always have a mask on.
Yeah.
So like I'm not gonna mess with that. I'm trying to make other people feel better. I'm trying to make people aware. I'm not going like full tilt like hazmat suit like rubber gloves like Dimitri Martin in Contagion or something, but like I try to do bring in some awareness and like protecting people in some way.
Yeah. Like, and you're not originally from California because you're from Illinois, right?
Yep.
Have you noticed?
I'm from the Chicago suburbs.
Yeah. Okay. Well, have you noticed a big difference between like how your family back in Illinois is handling it and how you're handling it? Have you had to have those difficult conversations? Like, if I'm gonna come home, I'm gonna need you to do this. Like, because I know Jacob and I have both dealt with that. And I was curious where you were at.
I have had to. I've almost like gone nuclear on someone because they are not wearing a mask and they're around a person who is immunocompromised, and I'm like, that's dangerous. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. I've had to like control myself several times, but for the most part, I think my dad's good about it. My mom's good about it. My brother and sister are both good about it. my sister lives in New Jersey, so she like that's not she doesn't her whole set of circumstances is a little bit different. Um, but like for the most part, my dad is super good about. My dad has COPD, so he has
Oh
to be
yeah.
extra careful.
Yeah.
So like when this whole first like thing first started, I had to tell him like, listen, you're not going out, and if you are going out, you're getting like either groceries delivered or like you're like having someone get the like my brother lives with my dad, so I'm like, if you're going in, like my brother Sean's getting the groceries. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it because it does things to your lungs, and if he gets compromised, that could be it. And so like I do get a little bit heated when it comes to the protection of my family members because I know that like especially in like the rural areas, people are a little bit like tend to not care as much. At least by where my parents live. And so I get a little bit heated when I hear people just being a little bit reckless. I know someone in my family who doesn't wear a mask, and I've had to yell at him several times.
Do you think it's that they're more that they don't care as much, or do you think that they feel like the space between people automatically gives them this sense of protection or this less? It might make it less communicable.
It could be a combination of both. I think it is a thing of like because maybe it hasn't hit them yet, like it hasn't hit their community necessarily. They feel fine, but then before you know it, it's already there. Like when I was like just starting to think about telling my dad to make sure that he's careful, he like it was already in the county that he was in, and like it was already starting to spread. And you're like, well, like it's people have and people like it's things are like it's harder to get things delivered there. It's like harder to like he has to travel 10 miles to go to the store. Like he lives he lives in a town of 500 people. Like it is like that is a thing where like it's got to be harder, yes, necessarily to get transmission, but it's the things like you have to do when you have to go to like Walmart or you have to go to like I don't know, like Dick's Sporting, I don't know, whatever the store is. So like he like it's one of those things where like the factors like are probably fine. He's probably around your house, whatever. I don't care. Like that's neither here nor there. Like if you're cutting the lawn, who cares? Like as long as you're not like standing next to your neighbor hugging him or something when, like while the lawnmower's running in the background, like whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Like it is. But like when you have to go to like Walmart or if you have to go to like any of this whatever store, like if you have to go get your oil changed or something like that, which is a thing that my family has to do often. Like that is a time when like you gotta like you should be thinking about that, but I just think that because people haven't had to deal with that yet, it is a thing that like when it hits the rural areas, it's gonna hit it hard. And that's why I had to prepare a lot of my family for that like right away. And I it is a combination of all those factors. It's not any one thing, I think. But I think it is there's a level of comfortability that I think that is there that like they're like, oh, it's not gonna hit us. Like it's gonna be in the cities. It's not gonna be here. Or like it's just like maybe they think it isn't like passable because they're out in such spaced areas. But we don't like there's so much we still don't know.
Yeah. I think about rural environments a lot, rural communities, and I wonder sometimes if some of the feeling of not being invincible, but of less care is just given to the fact that they are on their own for most things. Like you think of it, there's a very DIY culture when you're in a rural community. You rely on your neighbors a lot. If your roof has a hole in it, you fix it. If there's there's a whole lot of grit that you earn by virtue of being a rural American. And I can't help but wonder sometimes if that plays into the I don't need to worry about this because I've survived everything mentality that comes out. Is just this because it also happens that there's far less diverse environments out there in the rural areas, so you've got more like people that just see each other, don't think much about anything outside of that bubble. I mean, you could say the same thing about metropolitan areas. If we forget rural people, rural people don't give a crap what happens in the city. So it's definitely a just kind of a cultural thing you've established. But I wonder if that plays into that. I don't wear masks because I've had the flu. I do all this stuff. I've put 15 nails through my hand yesterday and I band-aided it.
And my neighbor's in my bubble.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And just to go back real quick, like I'm not saying it's like just not that attitude is not necessarily just in the rural areas. Like it is, of course, also in the metropolitan areas too. Because like, listen, I have stared at Instagram for so many hours. My Instagram usage over the course of the last 8 months is probably disgusting. Um,
Do you feel better for it though? That's the question.
kind of, I don't know. But I've seen the amount of people that are in cities too. Like they are like at parties. They're at like lots of people being together. Now, of course, some of these people are also getting tested. So like that's not to say whether or not maybe as long as you're safe, as long as you're like consciously minded, you know that you're not going to be in an environment like as long as you know that like you're a group of friends or like you know that you're all being safe and good like that I don't that doesn't affect me that's like fine if you want to do that just be careful but like that's not to say that it isn't in the cities too because like you know I've heard stories of like things getting shut down in like New York. I've heard things of like getting shut down in Los Angeles. I've seen like people like going on like vacations like near like San Diego and stuff and like partying it up on boats and stuff and you're like what is happening like but it's just like as long as you're I don't care as long as you are being consciously minded and safe. That's fine. That's just do it. I totally understand why it feels good. I like totally understand like the need to get out. I know understand the need to interact and be social. You know, dopamine in our brains tells us to do or whatever the uh thing is in our head that like makes us feel good. Like just like I totally understand. Just be safe. Just be like good and conscious and know what you've been around and like yeah, it
Yeah.
varies. Like there again, it is like I mean this is probably like a not a nihilist answer, but like I totally understand like it's as long as you know what you're doing and you're being safe and you're not being reckless, then like fine, okay, I get it. So like that attitude can like it just depends on the circumstances that are around you and just
Yeah,
making
for
the most
sure.
of that, I guess.
Absolutely.
So a couple of quick questions before we move on. But
Sure.
you mentioned groceries a couple of times. I gotta hear it. What's the best thing you cooked during this pandemic?
So that's the shocker. I live in a apartment that does not have a kitchen.
Oh
Uh,
shoot.
yeah. So and that was not because I wanted to live in an apartment that doesn't have a kitchen. I had a circumstance where basically I had to move out with like not no notice because that's not fair to my former roommate. That is like I had 2 months to like move out of a place, and basically the entire situation like devolved into madness, into like an after hours level of like just absurdity. And basically I ended up moving into a place that like it's not much bigger than the other side of the room here. Um, and so I don't have a kitchen. I don't cook. I get meals from Freshly. So
Okay.
if you guys know that little service where you get like your meal, they're already cooked. You just throw them in a microwave, and they're like you know semi healthy ish. Um, so I get most of my meals. I get like 10 of those a week. So like I get
Okay.
most of my meals are pretty decent. In
So it's
terms of that.
like Blue Apron, only it's kind of a more it's a further version of Blue Apron. Blue
Yeah,
Apron just puts together all of the components and you go and cook it. This is
yeah,
they put together the components, they cook it, then all you
yeah,
have to do is just microwave it at the end.
yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And so, but like, so like, I get all that delivered. I pretty much just eat cereal for breakfast, unless I go to
Nice.
the local coffee shop nearby, which I did this morning. And it made me feel good. Um, and uh, so I get most of that stuff delivered. And anything else I want outside of that, I also like that's the other thing that gets delivered is like I'll just like do like either you know local Ralph's or like the Amazon delivery service, like
Mhm.
the Amazon Fresh or whatever. Like I'll do any supplementary things that I want is like what I'll get through there. So like it's you know it's a combination of that and then like you know we have Postmates and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So I get maybe one or two like actual like you know, like pizza or whatever, you know, you can think of like pho or like whatever, like maybe once or twice a week. So like it is, I do keep it like a little bit varied.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it is the Freshly meals.
Okay. Very cool. And then the second question I have is what's the strangest quarantine activity that you either did or were a part of?
Oh my God. That is a very good question. Um, I don't have an answer. Because I'm so relatively locked down. I have not seen people. I've not seen like I've seen like two of my coworkers once for like 2 minutes. So like the strangest activity I could say is like just when all this started is just going to the grocery store and realizing like that like they've turned my Trader Joe's into a maze.
Yes.
So like
So you're 100% right. That first time I went into the grocery store, I was like,
yeah. 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 Like
it was not a pleasant experience.
yeah, because like the Trader Joe's that I like go to is like it's relatively small store because it's not a boutique store. It's like it smaller grocery store with like more nifty niche things.
Mhm.
And so like but it's a smaller store so like it's like you literally go aisle by aisle but they like beforehand like people were just running by willy-nilly. They had to turn it into a maze because people were just running into each other and that's in the beginning stages of a pandemic probably not a great idea. So like they quickly turned that into a maze. Like other than that, like the other strange activities is just like streaming or like
Yeah.
or just like uh writing or like I can't, I wish I had a better answer. I don't
No.
because
I've seen you streaming a whole lot more since
Yeah.
this pandemic because we've watched you quite a few times. We've rated you quite
Oh,
a few
thank you.
times. Yeah. It's been great to watch you stream.
Thanks. And back at you guys. I know I have to pop into the chats more often. But sometimes like it depends on what the day is because like we got live sports to deal with or like whatever. But yeah, like just that or like I don't have a great like exciting fun answer. I didn't go to like Cabo or anything or like like I've pretty much maintained the same boring existence for like the last several months. Like the only like other exciting things that I've done is like just write. That's it. Like just write. I've like
that's a good answer. That's a good. Those are the kind of things that, and I'm going to ask you this later, but I'll wait on this one. And we're also going to talk about sports guys too, by the way. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later because I want to hear. I want to hear some responses to some questions about sports later.
Sure.
Well, let's pivot from that to talk about Jacob. You had some roundtable stuff you wrote down. I want to get how you're feeling over the last week.
Yeah, so there are three things that I want to chat about. Three. Sure. Number one, my child is crawling.
Oh
my goodness. He's just turning 7 months next week, and I'm not prepared.
Yeah.
Not prepared at all for that transition because before you put him down, you could walk and go do something and come back 30 seconds later and he's still there and he's looking at you and he's cute and he's wonderful. And now you put him down and you turn around. You don't even walk. You just turn around to go like pick up a cup of coffee and he's already halfway across the room and you're like, shit, get back here. I haven't finished protecting the house. And I'm not prepared,
move quick.
Guys.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared. So yeah, that's kind of a big thing going on with me this week. So I'm enlisting the help of some friends, Stephen, to come over this weekend and help me finish baby proofing the house before he completely wrecks himself, because he's going to. I know he's going to.
It's on the air. You have to help him now.
I know. I'll get called out by the entire Legion of Dorks if I don't show up.
Yep, and I'll keep Discord abreast of whether or not he has or not. How about that?
I like it.
Hold you accountable.
That's fair.
So the second thing is going to be a little bit deeper, and I don't want to get too deep into it because then we'll start getting into politics, and I want to try to avoid politics. But some of the nation's experts have come out recently and said, we're in a real bad spot, guys. This is not a good place that we're in right now. We're coming into flu season. We're coming into cold season. People are going to be cooped up in their houses. They're going to be going to other people's houses. They're going to be locked in enclosed environments. They're not going to be outdoors. We're in a bad situation and it's getting worse. And those people are about to get fired. And that sucks because they're the ones who are telling us, guys, let's do the right thing here. Let's try to figure out a way to try to make this a little bit more tolerable. Let's try to get through this pandemic. And they're gonna pay a consequence for saying that. And to me, as a scientist, it crushes me when you're referred to as idiots and looked down upon because you're just trying to give information, and ultimately that's what's going to happen. Is there's going to be quite a few people that lose their jobs over the next few months because they came out and said what I think is the right thing, but some other people may disagree and think that they came out a little too strong. So I'm a little disheartened from that perspective, because I see that we're in a bad place. I think everybody can see that we're in a bad place. If you look at the graphs, technically we're in a pretty big third wave right now, and it's only
Yeah.
getting worse. And we'll talk about that probably in the news a little bit. But yeah, it's coming.
It's just to jump on that, like real quick, like that baffles me in so many different ways because one, like the scientists, they not everything's going to be 100%, but they are trying to get as close to 100% as possible, right? Like things are going to happen, like you might have some data that like maybe goes a little bit askew maybe once or twice, and that happens. That's the scientific method. We are that's why you test things repeatedly again and again, and like we're trying to get out of one of the worst situations that we've ever been in. And to like me, the people not listening to the people that are like doing data driven, science driven things is insane. Like we should be listening to these people. We should be doing everything possible, uh, within reason, obviously, but like we should be listening to these people because they're like trying to tell us what to do. And like it is beyond my imagination that we are like not that we're just like, nope, don't have to listen to you, don't care. Like that's
There's a reason why it's called the Center for Disease Control, right?
yeah.
And if you don't listen to the Center for Disease Control, then who are you going to listen to?
And
Yeah.
then you got diseases. And
Yeah,
then like
because you
that,
failed to control them
and these are
properly.
people with decades of experience,
Yeah.
right? That like we're like sitting here, we're like this, like if you want to talk about Fauci or like anybody else, like these guys have like they've been around since like 1979 or like some crazy thing. They've lived through the AIDS crisis. Like they've been through so many like H1N1. Like they've been through so many things, and you're like, why would you fire these people? What is like what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it baffles to me to my core. That's I don't know.
It's it makes absolutely it makes absolutely no sense. I mean, and these same people who are upset that the scientists are doing this, and they're like, "Those bunch of idiots. They're just a bunch of scientists. They don't know things. They're not down here in the real world or something."
Mhm.
Are the same people that would hire a plumber if they didn't know why their toilet was stopped up, and they'd be like, "What's going on?" Or a furnace guy. They call the furnace guy and they say, "Hey, furnace guy, why is my furnace not working?" And furnace guy's like, "All this." They don't go, "What reason do I have to believe you?"
Furnace guy.
Furnace guy. So why do we treat scientists like that? I don't. It's like almost a fear a fear of intellectuals. Like they couldn't possibly know what my immune system can do. And
Yeah,
I'm
and that's
sorry, I'm
not to
giving them
say
all
that
a
like
country accent, but that's
yeah,
what's
and
in
that's
my
not to
head.
say that like some people aren't like giant jerks about some of this stuff, and you can absolutely be giant jerks about this stuff sometimes. And I totally get it, but like that, and that'll turn people off. But like that doesn't mean it should color your entire existence of it. But
Yeah,
here we are.
yeah, here we are.
And
Well,
the third thing I wanted to mention, I'm going to move away from this and pivot a little bit, is get ready, guys. I'm warning you now. There's quite a few articles out there. There's quite a few things going on. Stockpiling is about to become a real thing again,
Mhm.
especially if we go into any kind of little restrictions, or especially around the holiday season when people start purchasing more items, and it gets cold again, so they don't want to go out. So there's going to be purchasing of more. Same items that will probably be gone before are going to be gone again. Maybe the bread, maybe some of the canning supplies, maybe not so much, but the yeasts and the toilet papers and the paper towels and the cleaning supplies, the hand wipes, and all of that stuff could very well start flying off the shelves again. I read an article just yesterday talking about how they're already starting to see some strains on the current systems, and they're starting to run out of supplies already. So if I were in my shoes, I'm going to make sure that I have enough supplies, because I don't
Right.
want to get caught with my pants down again.
Mm.
Yeah, and no toilet
Yeah.
paper for those
And no
down
toilet
pants.
paper.
Yeah, that's a bad.
Yeah,
That's a
that
bad move.
like especially when like all this first started too, right? Like when like the and not hoarding, that's not the right word. Like all the stockpiling. Like when all that first started, like like especially like the toilet paper and stuff. You're like, how? What? Like what? Why is that the thing that flies off the shelf? But like I had to like kind of navigate that myself, especially not having a car, not being able to like jump from like grocery store to grocery store before
Yeah.
having the grand old idea of getting everything delivered. Um, I had like especially like toilet paper, like I like couldn't find any in the stores, but if I went to 7-Eleven, I could find an industrial size roll of toilet paper that's the size of my like upper chest.
That wouldn't fit in the roll because it's
Yeah.
too big.
Yeah.
It sticks against the wall.
And I'm not kidding. I subsisted off of that for like 2 months before I had to go out and like then like the supplies started coming back in.
Yeah.
So like I had to find little weird ways like depending upon what it was to like make the most of it for like a time, like a week, maybe a month, maybe what like depending on whatever the supply was. Um and so like I had to find like weird little ways of like doing that. And like you said, you don't want to get caught with your pants down. And like I totally understand that sentiment. I don't want to get caught like that again. I don't want to have to like run to 7-Eleven and get like the worst quality paper you've ever had, like
Yeah,
but like
one
it
ply.
worked. Yeah. So like that's the way it was.
Sandpaper. That's what
Yeah.
it is. Steven
Yeah.
is all about the quality of taking care of his butt. So listen to Steven if you want to know what good quality toilet paper is, because he's all about the care of people's butts.
Any
You don't wanna walk around like a
proctologist in
penguin.
the no, and any proctologist in the universe will tell you that normal toilet paper is the worst thing you can do for your butt. Wet wipes are the jam. Just every plumber will tell you don't flush them, which I know sounds gross, but
And every civil engineer will say you're clogging up all the pipes, and you're going to get
Yeah.
one of those big, huge balls that clogged up all of London and San Francisco and everything else.
yeah.
I already had it happen in my apartment complex. Not even
Bad
joking. I
news.
woke up one morning and I was like, what is that smell? Because like once or twice I had heard like, you hear like your toilet bubbling and you're like,
Yes.
oh, that can't be good. Like something's a miss here in Pleasantville. And I'm like, something's going on. And like, you start like flushing things and like, you're like, oh, that's slower than usual. Like or it's like not refilling. And you're like, okay, something's up. And then like the next morning I woke up and there was sewage in my bathtub.
Oh.
And luckily, yeah. And
Ooh.
it was a major one when like before you even have the chance to call someone, I have an online website that you can contact maintenance for. Because we're hip in the 21st century. Over here at this apartment complex. Yeah. And before my like request went through, there was a dude here with like a roto-rooter like the size of a pickup truck. And like you heard drilling underground because that's how bad it was. And
Yeah.
so it ain't no joke. And like you could tell like you could hear like expletives or something like going on.
They don't like it.
It was not
they use like it's like a snake hooked up to an air compressor.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a gnarly machine that goes in and clears it.
It's real like serious because like that thing will shred like a metal pipe basically.
Yes. Yeah, you need to be careful with it.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks Jacob for filling us in. I don't really
what's
have
on your mind?
I don't have anything new. I really don't. I haven't done much in the last week. I'm trying to like be safe, like Coleman said. Like I need to go get some wood to finish this project, and I haven't done it yet because I keep going. I need to go get some wood, but I don't take Sam with me anywhere.
No.
And I don't, and I want to because the dude doesn't even know there's a world out there anymore. Like every time we go
who doesn't
for a
want to have an
drive,
experience? Yeah, who doesn't want to have an experience with their son raising them in the world?
right, taking them to like I want to go to this wood shop and see if I can find this this plywood I want to use to build this box. And I want to take him because that place is super cool. They've got all these neat tools. They've got all these giant slabs of wood. Like it's one of those places that sells these huge natural slabs. So you can find these really cool pieces. but I'm not gonna take him because it just exposed him. And then like I keep thinking I can relax a little bit. Then last night he had an asthma attack and started coughing everywhere, and that reminds me again. He's one of those that if he were
Yeah.
to get it and it were to be bad, no one who hasn't had an experience with a kid that can't breathe understands what it's really like to have
Yeah.
have a kid that can't breathe. It's the
Mhm.
most terrifying thing I've ever experienced in my life, and I think about that every time. I'm like, this daggone disease,
Mhm.
if he gets it, it could be really bad. So you gotta give him a hit of albuterol and just hope for the best. Um, but yeah, I'm still in. I'm kind of in a zone again though. Like I've been on
Mhm.
this roller coaster ride, and now I'm in this like whatever. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
do my thing. The temperature's calming down. I've been outside blowing leaves. We've been jumping on the trampoline. We got Sam a trampoline because you need to put your children somewhere to wear out their energy. Um, that's been great for the whole family, really. I got an
Yeah.
elliptical machine off Craigslist for $400 less than new. Um, I've used it. Watched the season finale of DuckTales while doing some running.
Oh,
That was great. Stephanie made fun of me, by the way. She's like, "What did you watch while you were exercising?" I said, "DuckTales." She's like, "Stop it!" I was like, "I wanted to see what happened." It was the season
Getting
finale, and
roasted
I
by
hadn't
your wife.
watched it. Yeah,
look, DuckTales. That
Yeah.
remake is legit.
it's really
Mhm.
good. It's really good.
Yeah.
I'm a grown up, and I think it's really well written, and I've laughed multiple times.
That's the one
Um,
with David Tennant, right?
Yes, David Tennant
Yeah.
plays Scrooge McDuck. But another around here, we're continuing with like movie nights and stuff. We watched Ernest Goes to Jail tonight.
Oh
Um,
no.
I don't know if you guys, Coleman, I don't know if you grew up or had experience of Ernest.
I have not
Uh,
grown up, but I have had a minor experience with Ernest.
yeah, so I was a big Ernest P. Worrell kid when I was little. I watched his Saturday morning show, and I was like, Sam, I want you to watch an Ernest movie with me because I was into it when I was 5 or 6, and I want you to check
Yeah.
it out. He laughed his head off, and I was like, this has stood the test of time because he was like talking to me about it, laughing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my joy tonight was watching him giggle like crazy over Ernest Goes to Jail. There's a moment like Jacob, you'll experience this too with your son, is when you share a thing that you always enjoyed with your kid and they enjoy it back. It's
Yeah.
like holy crap, we've had a moment. Um, it's the
That
best.
universal experience.
Yeah, we've shared a thing, and it's a great joy. But anyway, let's get on to some news real quick. I know we've been doing this show almost an hour, so we'll try and
Talk a lot. I'm sorry.
no, you're a freaking podcaster. Welcome to the club. We all talk too much.
I'm a Ranahan. I talk way too much.
Yes, yes. You could say you ran a hand away with your mouth. That's stupid.
See Pat Ranahan, Hannah.
Coleman
Oh yeah,
Banana Hand.
that moniker is there for a reason.
You just never know when to quit saying your last name.
don't.
All right, here we go. Let's do some news. In a twist on loyalty programs, Emirates is promising travelers a free funeral if infected with COVID. That's the airline, right?
Yeah.
Emirates Insurance for travelers stipulates that if one of its passengers is diagnosed with COVID-19 during their journey, the Dubai-based airline will cover their medical expenses up to about $176,000 US. It will pay $110 per day for quarantine costs, such as a hotel room for up to 2 weeks. And if the worst happens, Emirates will offer about $1,765 for a passenger's funeral. The insurance is automatic with ticketing, effective immediately, and carries no fees for travelers. It's an interesting idea. It delivers share of mind on steroids. It demonstrates the integrity of the brand to the public, and it shows that they have empathy for their customers and understand the current environment. I don't know that I would consider that empathy for your customers.
I don't think so.
We want you on this
I-
plane even if you die.
I have a bone to pick with brands.
Okay,
Uh,
here we go.
Oh,
Should we
I-
do the mad as hell? Should we do the mad as hell button?
I can
Oh,
hit
yes,
the
please.
button.
I'm as mad as hell.
You know what really grinds my gears?
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
I have a bone to pick with brands that think they can announce stuff like this and it'll be the greatest thing that like the earth has ever heard, right? So like LA just did this not like a week ago, right? So like, you know, whether it's a city or it's a brand, they announce these things where like, guess what? even though it's COVID times, we'll give you $20 off your ticket if you pay it right away during COVID. And you're like what or like it was like some weird like stipulation where like it's like, sorry, like bad things happened, like here's $20 off this thing, like it's a great thing. It's not a great thing. Stop announcing it like it's a great thing. Jesus. like just stop. Like brands have to like be aware and read the room when things are like this are happening, because again, it is a once in a lifetime pandemic. Stop announcing things like it's the greatest thing ever. Like you have to like read sensitivity into these things. And you can't be like, well, guess what? We'll like cover your funeral if like things happen. Like, oh, like no. That doesn't make me want to fly you necessarily. That like makes me want to like just stay home. Like, anyway, I'm sorry.
No.
Exploded.
That's beautiful. I do find it interesting that they say we'll pay for your funeral. So if you die coming on our airlines, we're going to pay for it. Is essentially what they're saying. But we're not going to give you a whole lot of money. We're only going to give you $1,700, and the average funeral costs $6,000. So we're only going to pay for a part of your funeral. You're not going to pay for all of it. But maybe the cast. That's about what we can pay for.
I mean,
Think of the discounts though.
Some of that cost is going to be getting your rotting corpse back to your destination. I mean, if you were to die abroad, like, come on.
Then you have to get like the State Department involved. You have to get like bureaucrats.
So
like there's more than just that involved. You're like costing the taxpayers money on top of that. So like there's way more involved with this than just that.
Yeah, they're gonna pony up $176,000 for medical expenses, but they won't pony up a little bit extra cash for a funeral. It's like, here, if you get sick, we're gonna pay for it all the way up to $200,000. If you die, here's a couple $100.
Yeah, that's insane to me. Come on, guys, like just
Anyway, well, let's move on to France and Germany and England, because they imposed new lockdowns as the pandemic of fatigue seeps in across Europe and COVID cases soar. Europe is already seeing new COVID cases and deaths soar, prompting governments to roll out strict lockdown measures to slow the spread. Since the beginning of the pandemic, many epidemiologists in the U.S. have looked to Europe as something of a harbinger of what's to come in the U.S. Now, epidemiologists and public health specialists are warned that the U.S. could share the similar fate as Europe if action is not taken quickly to counter the autumn surge. As the United States teeters on the edge of what some calls the start of dark winter, with roughly 90,000 new COVID-19 cases per day. There was almost 100,000 cases the other day. That's insane here in the U.S.
I think that actually happened today.
It did. It's stupid numbers. That's where we're at. It's just stupid numbers. We were talking about 20 or 30,000 cases a couple of months ago, and now we're at 100,000 cases. We're like, no, it's God. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Anyway, Europe is already seeing an astronomical number of new cases and deaths, prompting governments to roll out strict lockdown measures to slow the spread. However, like the U.S., pandemic fatigue has set in across Europe, where many residents say pubs and bars in the UK and France have been packed ahead of the implementation of these lockdowns. It's led also to a resurgence in the virus across Europe and America, where many people miss human contact and have grown very weary of working in isolation for the months on end. The worsening outbreak in Europe is starting to strain local hospitals there, and which epidemiologists worry will happen in the U.S. in the coming weeks, which is, interestingly, you were mentioning rural areas. That's really what I'm concerned about here in the U.S. is when the rural areas get hit, it may not hit like, go through them like wildfire, but what it will do is just put stress on those hospitals to where they're just bursting at the seams. And it sounds like that's starting to happen in Europe.
There are some rural hospitals all throughout the Midwest that literally have a doctor and a nurse generally on staff to deal with stuff like this. And those people are going to get hammered. I mean, we've already seen Utah talking about they locked people down again, or sent out one of the like statewide alerts via the cell phone network to say, stop going out, be safe. It's not like a lockdown, but they're like, our hospitals are hurting. And if our hospitals are hurting, our first responders are hurting. If our first responders are hurting, we've got no one to take care of anyone. So it's just, we need to take what's happening in Europe real seriously. I mean, we never got out of of this scenario, really. We've just been crawling into it, but it makes me kind of regret not going anywhere back in July or June as it gets worse moving into winter, because you're like, you want to be more relaxed as time has gone on, but really you would have been better off trying to travel in July when it still sucked. It sucks now.
Yeah, when 20,000 cases were happening a day across the United States in very isolated pockets, really. You avoided Florida, you avoided New York, you avoided Arizona. There were some very isolated pockets, and that were really the leading cases, right?
Yeah, and that
Whereas
sounded
the
like a
rest of the
lot.
country just had this ember, this slow burn.
Right.
But now it's 100,000 cases. It isn't pockets anymore. It's starting to catch fire.
It's widespread. This is a fun one. India's low hygiene gives it more immunity against the virus. Helps in COVID fight. This is pretty fascinating. This was coming from some doctor over there. I summarized the article. You have to forgive me. It's in the show notes. We also looked at the sanitation levels. There's a hygiene hypothesis that says if you are exposed to various pathogens since childhood, you are capable of dealing with them better. Low hygiene means more pathogens, and the body's immune system is better trained to deal even with the new ones. When that training is not there, it overreacts, leading to the cytokine storm, which can turn fatal. The study compared publicly available data from 106 countries, including COVID-19 deaths per million, GDP, incidences of non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, etc., and sanitation data. That was interesting that it showed that countries with higher GDP, or first world countries, more likely to have a bigger issue with COVID than countries that were poorer. And this fires back to many episodes ago with Kelly Lynn Colby, who suggested, maybe not on the show, but in Discord, twodorks.net/Discord, that the immune system, if not exercised continuously, has more likelihood of attacking stuff it doesn't need to attack. Because there's in greater, I think she had said in first world countries, there's a higher likelihood of autoimmune disease than in places where the immune system is constantly being tested by outside grossness. Places like India, where clean water, clean sewage, sanitation is not as readily available to as many people. And I mean, this tracks with things we know now, like you let your kids eat dirt when they're small because they need those pathogens, that stuff in their system so that it tells their immune system this is bad. The other stuff that we're doing is fine, and the army doesn't get restless and decide now is the time to eat the brain, because that's not what we want. But I thought that was pretty a curious study.
Yeah, and for me, I worry about it personally because I mean, Tater Tot's an infant, right, or rolling into the toddler stage every day, but he hasn't been exposed to anything yet. I don't even think he's had a stuffy nose. I mean, he he hasn't been sick, and the reason is because he hasn't been exposed to anything yet.
Yeah.
So part of me worries long term about this because I don't see this changing in the near future. So it could be up to 2 years, a year and a half before he's exposed to anything.
Yeah, sure.
It's one of those interesting silver linings, to bring that back again. Like things, kind of suck there, but I guess you got a little bit of an immunity to that kind of thing. But that's one versus the other, right? You've either got a great level of infrastructure to be able to take on those kinds of things, versus not.
Yeah.
And the implementation of those things is crucial too, right? We're if you don't you could have a hygienic society, but if you're not prepared for crazy things, then bad things will happen, right? And that's I guess the silver lining to having a society that or an area where things are not so great. And it's a weird thing to think about, and it's not a great necessarily thing to praise, because you're things could be better for these people, but then it's I don't know what I'm exactly getting at here, but it's just a weird trade-off, right? Where things could be better, but at least you've kind of got an immunity to these things, certain things here and there, and I don't know, it's a weird silver lining to me, I guess.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's weird silver lining, but you're right. Well, let's talk about North Korea. North Korea warns yellow dust is coming from China. North Korea has warned its citizens to stay indoors over fears that yellow dust, which blows over China, could bring the coronavirus with it. The streets of Pyongyang were reported to be virtually empty on Thursday following the warning. Blah, 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 blah. I don't think we need to read all of this, but the bottom line is that they fear that the yellow dust contains um, COVID and it's flying over the city. And the state head mouthpiece says, we must clearly recognize the danger of invasive malicious viruses that's in the dust cloud. So the bottom line is the folks from North Korea think that the yellow dust coming from China is carrying the coronavirus. And they've also been one of the states, one of the countries that have pretty much said we haven't been affected at all by the coronavirus yet. So
Yeah, which is a lie, obviously, right? Because like that's a thing where like that's a thing where you're like, okay, you know the government's lying because that's a thing that like right when the nuclear disaster happened at Chernobyl back in the day, the Russians were like, yeah, nothing. We only had like 3,000 people die when like in reality it was like 30,000 or something. It was like either 30 or 90,000 or something. Like people ended up dying or something from that. Like that's a thing where like you have been affected. You just don't want to say it, right? When like countries like Iran are like having like people on like live television sweating profusely, like it's already near like those regions. Like no. Nice try. Like that's you're not fooling anybody there.
Yeah. There's it's North Korea. Who's surprised?
Yeah.
Business as usual. The Sydney cocaine use bounces back after COVID-19 dip. This is coming out of Australia. Plucky little nation.
This was coming.
I
wish Landon was here to experience this one.
the first thing I think of when I think of Australia is not cocaine. It's not where I'm at.
No, me either.
Yeah, Sydney's cocaine consumption took a hit when the initial COVID-19 lockdown was imposed earlier this year, but use of the prohibited party drug has quickly recovered. In April, as coronavirus restrictions took hold, cocaine use in Sydney was estimated to be about 950 milligrams for every 1,000 people per day. I don't know if that's a lot. This compared to around 600 milligrams in Melbourne and 500 milligrams in Brisbane. Consumption levels in April were down from summer. But by June, following the easing of coronavirus restrictions in New South Wales, consumption rebounded to 1.35 grams. So if cocaine's your jam and you don't like COVID, Australia's a good place to be. I think Australia actually recorded 0 cases for the first time the other day. Yep. So if anyone's interested in moving to a place that speaks English and may just be a upside down version of what North America is, take a stab at Australia. Yeah, they flush. Those people walk upside down. There's like kangaroos and stuff. It's a weird place.
Summer is winter, winter is summer. I mean, it's just all kinds of craziness.
Yeah, you want to celebrate Christmas in your shorts? It's the place to be.
I already do that, and I'm in Los Angeles.
Yeah, true. You don't have to go to Australia, but come on, the accents are better. You've got Tim Tams.
I absolutely have to go to Australia at some point. Not just for the not just for the cocaine, but I mean, right? Like that's a really interesting thing too, because like I don't know anything about cocaine. I don't know anything about.
You're in LA. Don't lie to me.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, where sells drugs cheaply? You're like around the corner right there.
If we want to go on the record about anything, I've been offered cocaine once, did not do it. So
good for you.
Because I already know my own heart and already having palpitations, and I'm like, I'm not messing with that stuff because like that, I don't want to like just keel over. Like, no thanks.
Yeah, coffee will never work again.
Yeah, like what is it like? I don't know if this is like. I wonder if that like. Obviously, you're not able to get to like a dealer, right? So like people are locked down, and like that just makes me also think like, what if people like thought it did something to like their immune systems too, or something like, right? Like you wouldn't want to be like compromised in any way by drugs or something, like because you're like
That's true.
Like, what if you had to go out a lot? Like, I don't know.
I think the drug dealers are missing an opportunity for COVID. We need to have DoorDash for drugs.
That's the plot of Half-Baked, right?
We will bring to you and drop it off at your front door and take a picture and send it to you and say it's here. Yeah, that's what we need. DoorDash for drugs.
What was the company in Half-Baked where they delivered the weed? What did they call
Mr. Happy? God,
Oh,
what
that
was it?
was-
Shoot.
I'm
I
looking
haven't
for
seen
the
that movie in
title.
ages.
Oh my gosh. It was, yeah, you're right. It was like Mr. Happy Pants or something.
There was something.
Well, California essentially has that. Like we have a company called Ease out here that like delivers weed like everywhere.
Yeah.
Like,
And in
yeah, I
Oregon,
forget.
they let you grow weed, they let you smoke weed. Now this election yesterday, they passed shrooms and LSD and all
Yeah.
kinds of craziness up in
Yeah.
Oregon. So
I have a
You're-
funny
you're
feeling. I have a funny feeling
Mr.
people are going
Nice
to take
Guy.
the Oregon thing out of context, but because like they legalized stuff, but it's not like dealer amounts. Like you can't like get like gobs and gobs of drugs. Like you can't like
Yeah.
walk out the door with like drugs stacked a mile high, right?
it's
Like,
like
you
an
can't-
armful of drugs. I've got drugs, guys.
Like you can't just walk out the door with that kind of stuff. Like there is some restrictions to that, and like of course you're not going to be able to get like the nuclear grade stuff that you want. So
Mr. Nice Guy was the name of the weed company in Half
Oh,
Baked.
Mr.
nice.
Guy.
Yeah,
that is
so,
a perfect name for a delivery service.
yeah.
All right.
And you're right. There are more states with weed on the agenda. Maybe North Carolina will get some medical marijuana there on the ballot in a couple years. No way. Not
It'll
gonna
go
happen.
through federal government before. I mean, eventually the federal government's going to have to step in and go, okay, we've got way too many states where it's decriminalized and legalized, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've got to get it a common sense approach across the nation, and that's when the Bible Belt will actually have to just cave in and go in lockstep with the rest of the
Yeah.
country. So
And
anyway,
man, everything will be ruined then. Oh my gosh! Everyone who
Gateway
hasn't
drug.
done
They'll
weed
say
will
that
do the
initially,
weed.
but then they'll see the tax dollars that come in from it, and then we'll see if that's a
Yeah.
different discussion.
Sell
what
it
I
in an
don't understand
ABC
about-
store.
I was going to say, what I don't understand about North Carolina is that they already have the infrastructure to be able to sell this and tax the shit out of it. They've got their own stores that sell liquor. They sell spirits to us. ABC store, just throw them in there and tax the shit out of it. Call it a day.
Jacob, my head's gonna explode because I don't know why no one flips out of the fact that there's a government-owned store that sells liquor, and unless you are the government-owned store, you can't sell liquor, and how that's not
What?
somehow communism.
I know. That's
a
got to be
thing?
communism. Yeah.
Somebody needs to just sound the alarm because we ignore it, but that's freaking how it works. No one else can sell liquor but
Oh.
the state.
I don't
Yep.
know how I didn't know that because I was actually just recently in not recently, I should say like a year and a half, 2 years ago. I was in North Carolina, but I never went to like a
You can't
To
sell
go
liquor
find liquor.
store outside of an
Yeah.
ABC.
There's a break point at the spirit level versus beer and wine level. The beer and
Yes.
wine you could buy from the local grocery store. The
Yeah.
convenience stores everywhere sells beer and wine. But once you get above 20% alcohol or 22%, I think it is, you have to go into the spirits, and that's where you have to go to the ABC store because it's taxed differently, and we have a government-run store that sells to the individual. Call
That's
it
in
socialist?
communism.
No, it's not. It's not communism. No, it's not. It's just a good, clean, wholesome way of selling.
You
beer.
have to
That's so
go
weird.
to the government to get the liquor.
That's
is
so weird. 'cause,
wrong.
Like, now listen, I've come from like a conservative town growing up, and like they wouldn't sell liquor on Sundays.
Yeah.
And like so like I kind of see that in a weird way, but like I also like that also doesn't make any sense. Like why when like the entirety of the United States isn't that way, why would you have it that way? It's just like old laws and stuff, right? Like that like you're like this has just been in place for a long time. Nobody's actually like really thought to challenge it. Like why what?
Yeah. It's like North Carolina. You can only have sex missionary.
Yeah, true. That's true.
Yeah.
And we're all
1800s, there was a
law-abiding
law
citizens.
passed in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And nobody's going in the books and said, okay, let's just get rid of this thing. But in the 1800s, somebody passed a law that said you could only bang your wife in a missionary position. And guess what? It stayed on the books.
Hey, man, look. We're
I'll have to
law-abiding
remember that the next time I'm
citizens.
in Franklin.
What?
Here.
There you go. All right, I'm going to get a little more serious because there was an incident that happened in North Dakota that I thought I would at least bring up here on Staring at Goats. So there was a Republican, David Andahl, who actually died of the coronavirus about a month ago, but his name was on the ballot, and he was actually elected yesterday to the House of Representatives in North Dakota. And it tells you that it can affect anybody at any time. And this guy was running for an elected office, and he was right in the middle of his election cycle, right in the middle of his campaign, and that's whenever he contracted the virus and passed away. But he was still elected, and so now I think it's the governor. The attorney general said last month that the votes cast for Andahl should still be counted for him, and if he won, they're going to vacate the seat and then either be filled by a legislative member party or a special vote. Apparently, he was a cattle rancher. He was a race car driver. He was hospitalized for a few days. He wasn't feeling well whenever he tested positive for the coronavirus, and then he passed away. But damn, this just sucks. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's trying to help his local economy, trying to help his just do the right thing and be a civil servant. And next thing you know, he passes away right in the middle of his campaign, and he still gets voted in. So now they got to try to figure that out as well. So it's just a shitty situation all around that happened yesterday.
Isn't
Yeah,
that kind
I think
of?
that's a. Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Coleman.
No, I was just gonna say, like, that's a reminder that, like, this thing doesn't care, like, coronavirus doesn't care your political affiliation, your sexual orientation, doesn't care who you are, right? It affects everybody.
Yeah.
Like, and so no matter if it's a Democrat or Republican, Green Party, it doesn't matter. Like, it could potentially affect you. And I think that, like, like, stories like this are always weird because, like, obviously, you have to create like a new election, or like, someone has to be appointed or something, right? But like the fact that it's undercut by like the coronavirus just sucks even more. And like, I mean, if you follow my Twitter feed, what my affiliate status is. But like, I don't want this stuff like wished upon anybody, because like this is a thing that like affects you in the worst ways. And like, it can affect your heart, it can affect your lungs, it can affect you, just like your body overall. And like, I dread thinking about what would happen if I got it. And like, I would not wish this upon anybody. And the fact that it happened to like somebody who was, yes, trying to be a civil servant, right? There's somebody who trying to serve their district, trying to serve their people. Like, that sucks. Like, there's no good way around that, right? Like, there's no good thing that comes out of that. Like, you're just like, this sucks. Like, that's all I got.
Yeah, no, there's a harsh truth within this thing. This reminded me for some reason of John Ashcroft back in the day. Didn't he win his race for, I don't know if it was Attorney General, if he was some house, some state representative at the time, but I remember he beat a dead guy. It was the only other person on the ballot was a dead guy. And this one, it was kind of went the other way. I don't know why my brain went there. Look, I'm running on no sleep and it's late.
Listen. Sometimes you just remember a guy.
I just remember John Ashcroft, and I remember everybody being terrified of him. I think that's the way the game goes. You're just supposed to be afraid of attorneys general. They're just supposed to scare you. That's how they work.
It's not to get too sidetracked real quick, but like that's when I say remember a guy, it's that's a bit from the Defector podcast, which is a sports website that, like, it was the old Deadspin, if you remember Deadspin.
I do vaguely.
Defector is the new Deadspin, basically. But anyway, like, they always have a bit where they're like, hey, you want to remember a guy, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. You remember a guy. Yeah. And like, it's random, it's weird, and then you just remember the guy, and then you're like, hey, that was the guy.
Yeah, I was reminded of him.
I've derailed the show once more.
No, you're good.
Well,
we are going to get into this
sports.
deep dive. Yeah, sports time.
I'm here for it.
Is there music? Because I didn't get the music.
Oh, no. Do you want me to do music? I can do music.
No, I was just curious if there was music. Because it's not feeding back into my area.
There. I did it.
All right, we got it. So, CPAT Ranahan.
Yes.
I have a question for you.
I have an answer, I think.
Last week, the LA Dodgers won the World Series.
Yep.
Okay. I went on an epic rant about Justin Turner being an asshole.
Yep.
And you live out there.
Yep.
And you know a lot more about Justin Turner. You know a lot more about the Dodgers organization, I'm sure, than I do. I kind of follow it a little bit, but I don't. Tell me about what the feeling is around Justin Turner and what he did at the end of the final World Series game last week.
Yeah. So Justin Turner, right? Like just to fill everybody back in. Like Justin, like if you're not, you didn't listen to last week's episode or anything, Justin Turner like had a inconclusive test in the second inning, I think, come back, right? And then like in the seventh inning, he had a test come back positive, right? So they yanked him, right? And then all of a sudden, like he wasn't supposed to be, like they were like, he's positive, and everybody's like, holy crap, man, like this guy was in the dugout with everybody. And like then afterwards, Justin Turner comes out, right? And he's set, like they later on were like, oh, hey, let's just let him back out on the field. He can hug and kiss everybody. He can hold the trophy. He can like do everything under the sun. All of a sudden, you know, it's like suddenly he doesn't have coronavirus, right? Well, I'm in fantasy football leagues. I'm in like, you know, text chats with a bunch of people who are like all in sports, right? They're like, what in God's name are they doing? Right? Like it's one thing like if he's with the team and like he's already exposed them, right? But he's like on the world stage with reporters, he's with cameramen, he's with like all these other people, and like everybody under the sun was like, what are you doing? What on earth possessed you to just let him out there? And like people were like, well, it was gonna happen no matter what. We wanted to let him celebrate. And you're like, it doesn't matter. He has coronavirus. What are you doing? Right? And like this is where I'm gonna get a little bit heated, right? Like
I do it.
He's talking to all these other people, and they know he has coronavirus. The reporter on the field is out there talking to him, and like he is across the stage, and you could tell in his face, he's like, I should not be here. And like you could tell that like there's a thing going on where like in LA, I follow a lot of LA people on Twitter, of course. And like a lot of people were just like they were not focusing on the fact that the Dodgers won. They were focusing on the fact that Justin Turner tested positive for coronavirus, and the Dodgers were just like, well, here he goes. And secondly, Dave Roberts, who's the manager of the LA Dodgers, recently survived cancer, right? I think I'm not entirely positive about that. And
yeah,
he's
non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yeah, and he's just nearby Dave Roberts, and you're like, how incredibly reckless are you people being right now? Like, this is like a thing, and like one of the reasons I'm like a big fan of Defector media. Is because the Deadspin 2.0 is that they immediately came out and were like, yeah, this was the dumbest thing you possibly could have done. It's a World Series trophy. Yeah, we totally understand the feelings that come with winning a championship. It's a big thing, especially for the Dodgers. They hadn't won in 25 years or something like that. Totally understand the feelings and emotions that go into it. Doesn't matter. He had coronavirus. This is a thing where you're putting people at risk. It spreads, it's like a transmission rate of like 1 in 1,000, right? Like you can easily spread it to 1,000 people before you know it.
Mm-hmm.
They were reckless. They were idiots. They should not have done it. They should not have let Justin Turner on the field. They should not have let him near anybody. They should have put him like not in a lockbox, but like, you know, they should have like sent him off to like a hospital or a hotel room or whatever to monitor him. They should have done testing. They should have been like doing everything that they could have. It doesn't matter. Why? Because they won a World Series. Their season is over. They don't care. It's money. Right?
And they don't have to go through the testing protocols next week. They only had to go through the testing protocols through the last game. Then they were done.
Yeah.
So we're like, whatever. We'll whatever.
Yeah.
But I think I said the same thing as you toward the end of my rant last week was that they should have never put this decision in the Dodgers' hands. They should have never put this decision in Justin Turner's hands.
Yep.
They should have, Major League Baseball should have had a protocol in place to say, get him out of there. Put him in a truck. Put him in a big, huge freaking limo. I don't care.
No.
Put him some vehicle. Bring him to the best location you could possibly find. Provide him all the champagne that he wants. Have him get drunk until his heart's content because he just won the World Series. Hell, send him some weed. You're in California, for God's sake. I don't care. Do something for the man.
Treat him like a Vegas VIP. Put him in a suite. Give him everything he needs. Give him the food. Give him the like you were saying, like the drinks. Give him everything. The trophy's gonna be there a month from now. The trophy's gonna be there weeks from now. Like, just put him like, you know, at the bare minimum, 10 days away somewhere. Let him back out. They can have like a giant thing going on, right? Like they can have like a giant, like quote unquote, like party or whatever it is with like the organization, right? You should not have been reckless with this, but it didn't matter because their season was over. They had their money. It didn't matter. Like it's
Yeah.
it's one of these like inherent things. I love sports. Don't get me wrong. I love sports. I love being competitive. I'm not a great competitor myself. Doesn't matter. But like there's an inherent ability to be able to protect people, especially not just the baseball players, right? It's the people around you that work in the stadium. It's the people in the front office. It's everywhere. You should not have put them in any danger whatsoever because we still don't know what this virus does.
Yeah.
And we still don't know the whole shebang. Like we're understanding more and more as days go on, but there's just so much we don't know, and you messing with people's lives is a problem to me, and I hate it, and I did not approve of it, and I did everything under the sun. You know, I'm one of those doom scrollers. I'll happily admit it. I was posting every perspective under the sun about why it was wrong on Twitter, and I was like, this was reckless and stupid. And congratulations, you've got your World Series title. Go away for a long time.
That's
here's
the
the
sad
question I
thing
have.
is
Good.
it did overshadow the win.
It
I
did.
mean, that's the only
Yeah.
story you heard. It's such a shame that 25 years since they've won, they get to win, and then all anyone can talk about is how shameful they should feel for having a COVID positive player on the field with no mask, hugging and loving all over his buddies. And
It was a great game. They've got a great ball club. Everything is like about the Dodgers. Like they were on fire. They were doing their thing, right? And the Tampa Bay was giving them the business. Except for the part where they pulled their one pitcher. And like it was a great series. Like baseball was fun to watch, right?
Yeah.
And then they overshadow it with this one dumb thing, and then
Oh yeah, and just to follow up on that point, Major League Baseball, that was a win for them.
Yeah.
That was a huge win. It was they made it through their season without too many incidents. I mean, you had the dumbass people that were on the boats that were partying and the Marlins who got but it was a huge win for Major League
Yeah.
Baseball because they were able to complete the World Series without incident. And then all of a sudden, this overshadows everything. It's like it wiped the slate clean, and every other sport was just like, ha, 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 we're not them.
yeah, right. They had that. There was that couple of events at the beginning of the season, where like they had like who was it, Clevenger on the Indians or whatever. Like he
Yep,
was doing
that was
stupid
one.
things. They let him go, and then like like you were talking about the Marlins. Like they had a couple of bad things, and then like they had like a smooth streak for a while, right? And then all of a
All
sudden,
the way through the World Series, right?
all
I
the-
don't think they had anything happen.
and then this happens, and then like you just like you were having such a great time, and you could have like even though like the positive test was kind of like a black mark on it, like you could have still ended the season in a somewhat positive note and be like,
Yeah.
hey, listen, we did everything right away, we got him away, we started testing everybody under the sun, and you didn't. You let it fall on its face, and congrats to the Dodgers, but like doesn't matter now because that's not the
So,
story anymore.
Out of curiosity, I mean, you're in LA.
Mhm.
That's the home team there.
Right.
Justin Turner, by all accounts that I've read over the last couple of weeks, he's like a hometown boy. I mean, he's
people
kind of
love him.
that. People love him over there.
Yeah.
What do you think the opinion of him in LA is going to be from a person that's boots on the ground over in LA? I mean, do you think this is going to change or mar his kind of legacy in LA, or do you think that people are just like, look, that it was overblown?
I think it's going to be a combination of both of those things. I think it's going to be a thing of like, he's our boy, he messed up, but you know what? It's okay. He's healthy now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's going to be like a combination of those things. Like the text group that I'm on, some of them are like diehard Dodgers fans, and they were like, this is wrong, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to represent the entirety of what LA thinks. Cause like a lot of hardcore Dodgers fans like probably won't end up caring.
Yeah. Once spring
so-
training hits, they're going to be like, we're reigning World Series champs.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah,
matter about Justin Turner.
2.0.
Play third base and hit a couple of home runs. We'll be square again.
Yeah,
So,
people
yeah.
only remember 2 weeks. I mean, news cycles are 2 weeks. People are going to forget that he ever ran out there, and it's going to be back to woo. Dodgers are World Series champs.
Yeah,
That's
and
my
like
theory.
I'm not a Dodgers fan. Because I'm from Chicago. I'm a White Sox fan.
Oh,
And, like,
ho.
Yes.
Woo, doggy.
Shout out Mark Burley. Anyway, I like we just hired Tony La Russa of all people, which I did not like. And like, how do we know that like because the White Sox are a young, exciting team. How do we know that this isn't going to happen a second time, right? Like, let's say like the White Sox were like on a hot streak going up into the playoffs, right? Like the White Sox looked poised to go far, and then of course they got knocked out.
Yep.
And then like, how do we know that Tony La Russa, who's 76 years old, how do we know that this is going to happen like him? How do we know this isn't going to be a thing that rears its head twice? Because we still don't know what's going to happen, because there could be a vaccine 3 months from now. There could be a vaccine 6 months from now. We don't know. What happens if this happens again, right? Like, this is a thing that like you're going to face a PR nightmare if you don't get this under control, if you don't have like a decision to like get this under control for the second time. Because like if the White Sox do it, like I'm going to be super mad that 1, they hired Tony La Russa, 2, they hired Tony La Russa, and 3, they're gonna let Tony La Russa in contact with these young players. And Tony La Russa is a old dude. Like, who's to say that this doesn't kill him, right? Like, this is like, I'm already thinking way ahead of time in terms of my brain, because that's all I do. I think all the time. Not well, but like it's like just a thing that like I'm like, and say it's not the White Sox, say it's somebody entirely else. Like, take my grudge out of it. Like, put some other team in there, right? Like, what if this happens again and like this does damage to somebody, right?
Yeah.
Like, you are gonna like face a world of hurt. You're gonna like face a lawsuit, millions of dollars. Like, this is a thing that you should be cutting off at the head and not worrying about for next season.
Well,
And
I mean, the Dodgers aren't even out of the woods yet. I mean, we're still within the 2-week period. I mean,
Right.
the manager of the Dodgers still could be in jeopardy. I don't know. I mean, nobody knows right now. We don't know if it's going to be a spreader event. We don't know anything at this point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right though. It's something we're going to have to get. So, go ahead, Steven.
I was going to say, and speaking of cutting it off on the head, I'm going to
she
regrettably
said.
have to cut our conversation off at the head.
No worries.
And see if we can drive on forward to getting Coleman's prediction, so we can wind things down before I die.
Don't die.
Coleman's got 3 hours on us. He can stay up
He does.
a long time.
That is true.
You and I are dead. We're dead.
We are.
So I'm trying to save us, despite really loving all of it. I don't want to lose it. So Coleman, we've got 3 to 6 months. What do you think is going to happen moving forward? Prediction.
Okay, so that's obviously dependent on a couple of things.
One of those might be important, and ongoing, right?
Yeah. One of those is the change, quote unquote, maybe change in leadership. I don't know. I don't want to predict the election. So that's obviously one of the big factors. But let's say in my crystal ball of crystal balls, somehow managed to predict the right leadership, quote unquote. I think if we get like a good group of people underneath that person, the first 2 months, we're probably no matter what, it doesn't matter until January, we're probably going to have more of the same, right? So the first couple of months are probably still going to be more of the same. We're still going to have rising cases. We're just going to have all of that stuff kind of be the same, I think. Whether or not there's a change in leadership in January, I think no matter what, we'll make progress in some limited ways, right? Because like, it doesn't matter. Like, the scientists are going to do whatever. They're going to do their things. They're going to have a better understanding of how things go. We may or may not start breaking headway on a vaccine. So I think we're going to start, I think around January, we'll start getting a little bit more of a handle on this. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to beat it back, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to like, everybody can go out now without masks, right? That just means I think we'll start like understanding, I don't know, like DNA strands, like all those things that are involved with that. We'll start understanding more of that. I think, but the one problem with that is, even though we'll start understanding a lot of that, I think we're hitting the winter, right? Where everybody's inside, everybody's like cooped up. Like, it's just, the winter is going to be harsh. It's not going to be great. Things are still going to happen. People are still unfortunately going to pass away. Like, it's no matter what, it's like, we'll learn one thing. The other things are still going to happen because it doesn't matter. It's the virus. I think once we get past January, I think we'll really start making progress. I think we're going to start fighting it. I think we're really going to start making some inroads, like provided that there is a change in leadership. If there's not a change in leadership, I'll cut that off real quick. If there's not a change in leadership, I think we're going to get more of the same until the vaccine happens.
Yeah.
So I think until a vaccine happens, it's just going to be more of the same. It's just going to be piecemeal. It's just going to be like up and down, lockdowns. Like it's just going to be all over the place. It's just going to be a giant yo-yo all over the place. Now, say there's a change in leadership. We'll really start to fight it. I think we're really going to have we're really going to be listening to scientists. We're really going to be listening to epidemiologists, people who are knowledgeable about this stuff. We're going to be up the testing. We're going to put a national I think this is important. We're going to put a national infrastructure in place, right? This is something that should have been here from the start. And I think we'll finally, because like, I think literally the other day, they like literally said, hey, we conquered coronavirus. And like, no, you didn't. Like, it's still here. So I think we're really going to start fighting it at 4 months. I think by 5 months, we'll start making bigger inroads. And then I think 6 months, we'll be primed to be in the best spot that we could potentially be. And this is putting my optimistic hat on. And it's very lovely and huge, and it actually fits my head. We'll probably be at the best we'll be before a vaccine.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean there is a vaccine. We could very well get a vaccine in January. I don't know. But like thinking long term, like let's say we can't, like the first vaccine trial bites the dust or something. I think 6 months, I think we'll be at the best we can possibly be before the vaccine actually comes out.
Well, the good news is that's coming right at the heels of flu season. The real prediction that I have for you is there going to be Thursday night football tomorrow night? I know San Francisco closed their facilities today.
Don't know. I feel like they're willing to move things now. It just I don't remember off the top of my head if San Francisco already had a bye week. If they didn't, they will. Let me look at the schedule real quick.
Well, they would have to have a bye week as well as their opponent.
Yeah. Otherwise, they may end up moving that game to next Tuesday.
Tuesday night. Yeah.
Yeah, because they already moved that one Titans game to like a Tuesday.
Yeah, it was the same week, but it was on a Tuesday.
Yeah. So like I think whether or not if they start getting like I'll say this, if they get tests back tomorrow and they're all negative, they're going to play the game no matter what.
Yeah.
If they get inconclusive tests, I think that means they will move the game.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that they'll want to chance that. They'll probably test people multiple times in that day, but no matter like if it's still coming back inconclusive, then they'll move the game.
Probably very similar to what inconclusive led Major League Baseball. And then finally, my last question is, what have you learned about yourself that's kind of surprised you during this pandemic?
I think about myself is that like this has given me time to think about a lot about myself in terms of like goals, in terms of like everything I'm doing in life. I think this has given me enough time to be like, okay, I know where I am. Like the thing, like it surprised me that I'm like, I am chill, okay, where I am right now. I understand that I want to move on. I know that like once, like it gave me the peace of mind of like, I know this isn't like, this is a passing point for me. Like this is a moment in time where I'm like, I get to get my stuff together, right? Of like, I get to write, I get to do a lot of scripts, I get to do some streaming. I got a lot of things in place that I've wanted for a while that I've not been able to get in quite some time. And that seems like a weird thing to say out loud, but I've been able, like, I don't think I've had time to stop and think about myself in that way. In terms of like taking care of myself, in terms of like mental health, I think in terms of like everything under the sun, I think it's like given me like a weird, again, silver lining, I guess is the word of the day. And like it surprised me that I've been able to think about a lot of this in a lot more clarity than I've been able to think about in the past. And I think that to me is a healthy thing. And I think to me that has enabled me to like start making moves that will supplement other moves once all of this is over. And I think that's a weird, like, it feels weird to say that, but like, I'm like, it's a thing that like will help me in the future. And I'm glad at least I've got that out of this.
It's almost like, we're so rarely challenged to this degree in life, particularly because we live in such a cushy environment, all things considered. Like, I mean, our generation in particular has been pretty. We've been provided for a lot of things. We haven't had to worry about a lot. I mean, in terms of being forced to worry about a lot, we're not worried about a bear charging out of the woods to kill us.
This isn't World War II. We're not thinking about rationing things. We're not thinking about wartime production. Yeah.
Right, but this is a worthwhile challenge to ourselves that everybody's been delivered, and there's a sense of having to step up to that challenge, even though that challenge is to be isolated with yourself. In a lot of ways, it's given us opportunities to be still and think on where we're at, and I think a lot of people have benefited from that. There's been a lot of people that struggle, but I think there's been a lot of people that struggled previously and ended up walking out of it going, man, I've learned how to cope better. That's encouraging, and I appreciate that positive take that you provided, because it's so easy to dive down into the muck and mire of where we are, and to hear people say, I learned things about myself that makes me a better person, or I've challenged myself in ways I didn't expect, or like you said, I've written a ton, because you're writing, Coleman, just to wrap the show up, your writing is phenomenal.
Thank you.
And I'm not blowing smoke. Everything I've read from you has always been an enjoyable experience. Your movie you made, Lost Signals, was fantastic. You had a gag about Rambo in there that had me on the floor. And I'm just always floored by what you've got going on. And if you ever get any of those secret projects rolling, I want to know about it, because I need to be excited, and I wanted, like, if I could throw money at you via some vehicle.
Definitely.
You let me know, because you're a talented human being, and I appreciate you being on the show and coming out and chatting with us and sharing all your thoughts with us. It's been really great. But where can people find you? I want to give you a chance to promote yourself. I know you got a lot going on.
Sure. And before I do that, first off, I want to compliment you as well, and Jacob as well, because you guys have been doing this for so long. I'm impressed that you've been podcasting for how many years?
Since 2005.
Yeah, that's incredible. I just want to say, I want to pay that compliment back to you first, because I am proud of you guys for maintaining that and just keeping at it. That's amazing. I wish I had that kind of stamina. I don't. But in terms of links and all that stuff, you can just find me on Twitter. It's just twitter.com/Coleman Ranahan. You can pretty much just find everything through there, whether I'm Twitch streaming or my movie, my web series, any dumb thoughts I've got at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep. You can pretty much find all of that there. So, and I don't think I have anything else. Yeah, just that and the Twitch stream. That's it.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, thank you again, Coleman, for coming on. If you enjoyed this show out there and you want to promote it a little or help us out, 5-star reviews are always great on any podcasting service of your choice. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm Steve H&H. Coleman is Coleman Ranahan, and Jacob is the only smart one of the bunch who just stays off of it completely. If you want to talk to him, you're going to have to go through me. So
that's very true. Staring at Goats Podcast at gmail.com.
Yes. Yeah. You can email us. We didn't have any email this week. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Staring at Goats Podcast at gmail.com. Also Patreon, twodorks.net/support. Thank you for the sub, Coleman. Wow. Look at you.
I had to end it on a good note.
Thank you for that.
Not that I wasn't on a good note. I just wanted to end it on like a nice little thing.
A little tapoo. twodorks.net/support. You can join our Patreon. Even $1 a month is something that's helpful for us. We get those checks and I'm like, yippee skippy, I get to pay for the server out of this tank of money instead of my own pocket, and you guys provide for that, and we're grateful for it. So big thanks to Hammer Dwarf, Og, Adam, and Christine of Geekheim, Oddly Normal One, and our parents for being patrons for us. And Coleman, you were just holding up your hands. Did you have a thing?
Sorry, I had one more thing.
Yeah.
I am actually writing now. There was a time when I wanted to do a humor column that failed miserably. I'm actually writing now on my blog, colemanranahan.com. I'm doing at least 2 articles a week. So if you want to read some of my writing, it's over at colemanranahan.com. I've been writing about everything. I've been writing about the White Sox hiring Tony La Russa. I've been writing about the time that I failed as a humor columnist. I'm writing about everything. So if you want to pick my brain at all, you can find all that stuff over there.
Hey, so well, you heard it here, man. ColemanRanahan.com is the place to go. So, hey, thank you guys for listening to Staring at Goats, and we'll see you next week with another guest, another goat, and more COVID-19. Let's do this thing. Stay safe out there. I forget you guys can't hear the music because Discord's a pooper.
Oh, my bad.
No, you were great. You didn't do anything.
Boom.
That's another one in the can.